Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Hopenning, the place where hope is happening. And we are in episode 46 right now. So thank you for joining us. I'm very welcome to you with my beautiful co host, Fran. And here we go. Episode 46 of the place where hope is happening. So, Fran will introduce our lovely guest to you today.
I am so excited to introduce to us and our viewers Lauren McCoy. Lauren, I've been wanting to get you on the show for so long, and so finally we're together. Lauren lives in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she's coming to us this morning. She's a licensed professional counselor, and she's been working in the field since 2013. She does it all. And you know what's really great about what she does? She works with codependency, perfectionism, and people pleasing. And I think that is a plague of the modern woman for sure. And Lauren, you also work with somatic healing, and that is something that is just fascinating to me. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our viewers about what you do, about yourself, before we get started?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited to get together with you both and all the viewers, and I just appreciate you extending the offer. Yeah, I think you covered a lot of it. I am a therapist. I work with individuals, and I also do groups, and I do webinars mainly on the topics of codependency, perfectionism, and people pleasing because they really often go together. And the way to kind of help heal from those tendencies would be the somatic work, which we can certainly talk about, as well as inner child healing. I find those to be two of the most powerful ways to really achieve healing from these tendencies. And so I'm just excited. I love talking about these things. They're things that I personally have worked on and continue to work on in my own life. So I can really relate when clients talk to me about their struggles. And I think that helps, so they realize there's no judgment. I'm on the journey with them, and I use the strategies that we talk about. So,
what is
Absolutely
your
amazing.
background, Lauren? What you say that you struggle, you've had these same struggles, Marina and I as well. Those viewers that have watched our show before know our backgrounds, but what is your background?
sure. I've done a lot of thinking over the years about kind of what brought me to develop some of these tendencies. And I don't think it's necessary to pinpoint the exact reason, but I do think it's helpful in just understanding ourselves better and also having compassion for ourselves. When we kind of know what brought us to these thoughts and behavior patterns that have really been coping skills for us, through difficult situations, we're able to be a little more gentle and patient with ourselves in the healing process and with other people who maybe we encounter that are having similar challenges. So as I've done a lot of this exploration, I had a pretty typical happy childhood. And so that really struck me as like, why do I struggle with these things? I didn't have any major, obvious trauma that could have led me to this. And so I really beat myself up for a lot of years about, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be acting this way. And as I explored deeper, I found it's often those little things that don't seem like they would have a big impact that kind of add up. They call them like little T traumas. And they're really common. They're things that a lot of people go through and just don't realize the impact. So for me, I was an only child, and I'm a very I like to be around people. I'm friendly. I enjoy interacting with people. And so as an only child, I struggled because I wanted other kids to play with. And a lot of the friends that I had came from really big families, really big extended families, tons of cousins. And I really looked at that with a lot of envy. And then I also had my parents divorced. And so I moved actually from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania with my mom. And we didn't really have any other family around. And my mom got remarried. And at my school, I went to an elementary school that was a very small Catholic school. And so it was very traditional. There was no divorce, certainly no remarriage. and all these really big families, and everybody had a lot of extended family that lived in the area. So I felt very different. I just felt other. And it wasn't even that people were outwardly making comments to me. It was just this sense of, I want to be like them and I want to be accepted. And because I really craved social interaction and I really wanted to have a big social circle to kind of supplement the lack of maybe family, I found, especially as I got towards adolescence, that I was very outwardly focused on what other people think of me. Do they enjoy being around me? Am I fun? Am I easygoing? There was a lot of, oh, only children are spoiled and they are very self-focused. And so I wanted to be the polar opposite of that. So I found myself, without realizing it, really being drawn to a lot of people-pleasing tendencies. I wanted to blend in. I didn't want to, speak up or stand out. And I just wanted to be included. And so when I look back, I think that was a lot of where it started. And for a lot of people, that's what happens. These people-pleasing, codependent tendencies, even perfectionism, is really a way to get our emotional needs met. It's a way to feel seen, heard, accepted, loved. Like that is what we crave as humans, starting from birth all the way up through the rest of our life. And so it's actually pretty smart to find, as a kid, to find these ways that are going to maximize your likelihood of getting those needs met and feeling emotionally safe in your environment. Because there's a lot that's out of your control as a kid. You don't get to decide kind of what you do on a day-to-day, who you're around, what your environment is like. And so, as we grow into adulthood and we do have more freedom, we do have more options, we can make choices about how we want to live and who we want to surround ourselves with. We still carry those tendencies that worked for us in the past because they've become automatic. They've become kind of just our norm. And without the awareness, we don't even realize we're doing it or why. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think of families nowadays really where it's one or two children, and lots of times I don't know if it's in Canada as much as in America. In America, there's a lot of travel across the country for families to move to another job. Yeah. And so you really are separated from your family of origin. So grandchildren are on the other side of the country, or maybe even sometimes on the other side of the world. Right. Because we have a world like this, where there's so many people moving from country to country for working. Like your story is so typical of so many people, really, that we all know, right? And yet we don't think about that little child. We don't. That's right. Because we are wrapped up in our, getting that new job, the raise, the whatever it is that is fulfilling us, the adult.
So Lauren, for the sake of our audience, can you give us a definition of codependency?
Sure. I like that you asked that, because I think we hear the word a lot, but we don't often hear what it means. And a lot of people that come to my live events will say, I had no idea that this was codependency, and I never put myself in that category until I learned more about it. There's a lot of association with codependency and the need to be in a relationship. I need to have an intimate partnership. And that can be a piece of it, but that is not the only way in which it shows up. And we also see, codependence associated with addiction. And again, that can be an area in which it shows up. However, it's so much broader than that. So from my perspective, with codependency, we frequently, on a regular basis, put other people's wants, needs, and feelings above our own. That's kind of part one. We're very much focused on meeting everybody else's needs. I always like to say it's kind of like we shine a flashlight on the room and we scan it. How's everybody doing? What's going on? Does anyone need anything? But we don't turn that flashlight on ourselves and say, how am I doing? What do I want and what do I need? And if we even attempt to, it can feel really selfish. We feel, oh, that's not okay. That's rude. And so we kind of shame ourselves. And the second piece of the definition that I use is that we look for validation externally. So we're looking for approval from others outside of ourselves. And that might be having a certain job that brings us a sense of pride and makes us feel worthy. It could be being in a relationship. Frequently, I see it's a person's role as a parent kind of defines them and becomes their identity. It may be making a certain amount of money. It could even be physical appearance or health, right? Like there's so many different ways in which we say, this is what makes me good enough and okay, and this is why you should accept me. And we fail to realize that we can provide that validation, approval, and emotional safety for ourselves, and that we all deserve that as our birthright. We don't have to be or do anything to earn those things. Just by coming into this world and being on this planet, we are worthy. And I think that's the real struggle, particularly with those of us who in our childhoods didn't feel fully accepted for any reason. And that's kind of where the inner child work comes in, because a lot of times that younger us still has wounds that we haven't addressed or healed, and they follow us into our adult life. And that's where we see a lot of the patterns repeat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very interesting. Sorry, Fran. We do this quite a bit. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. Marina and I do this through hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
We talk to the inner child, right, and find out exactly what is going on for that inner child. But how do you do it? How do you do it in your therapy?
That's really neat. I did not know that could be a part of hypnotherapy. I love that. For me, I find inner child work is one of those things that when people first hear about it, it sounds kind of weird and they're a little bit hesitant. Like, I don't know if I want to go there and do that. So there definitely has to be an element of readiness. There has to be really a sense of safety and a rapport within the therapeutic or coaching relationship first. That's the most important thing, because this is pretty vulnerable work, right? To dive deep into your past and to really examine where you may not have gotten what you needed as a child. And I think people are also hesitant to do it because they feel like they don't want to blame their caregivers or their family or any adults from their past who had an impact on them. And so I always say to people, this is not about blaming. When you do this work, some feelings might come up, some anger, some frustration, some sadness. There may be some grief work that needs to happen, but it's not so much about pointing the finger. It's more about having the compassion for little you and what you went through. And that even if the adults were doing everything to the best of their ability, they were also limited by their own unhealed wounds and their past traumas that they may not have even been aware of. So for me, I generally start by just kind of explaining a little bit about how our inner child shows up. And when the person says, I think I'm ready to tackle this, which usually it's not right away. It's once we've kind of continued, we keep coming back. I find we keep coming back around to the inner child. Like they'll understand the work that needs to be done intellectually, but then in their heart, they can't like make the next leap. And it's because they have this work to do. So I first start really small with someone getting to know their inner child. And a good exercise to do that is to find a picture of yourself from when you were young. It can be really any age, but preferably like prior to adolescence. And you find a picture, either a physical copy or if you have a digital copy on your phone. If it's a physical copy, you put it right by your bedside. If it's on your phone, you probably have it right there. And at least once a day, you look at that picture, you look into your eyes in the picture, and you just say, hi, little, and then like for me, it would be, hi, little Lauren. And that might be all they start off doing, is just a greeting and a looking into the picture for maybe 10, 20 seconds. Then as they get more comfortable with that, we might start where you're looking at the picture and you're saying, hi, little Lauren, how are you today? I hope you have an awesome day. Just know I'm here for you. I'm looking out for you, anything you need, right? And so as you do that, you can even check in multiple times throughout the day. I have a client who, when she would drop her kids off at school, as they were running into the school building, she would kind of greet her inner child because she was seeing all the little kids running into the elementary school. So she would use that opportunity to do that. You want to kind of just make it part of your routine. It does not have to be long. That's kind of an intro. And then as you get more comfortable doing this work, then you may start writing a letter to your younger self, where maybe you just kind of say, I'm so sorry for the things that happened that you weren't ready for, or that you didn't know how to handle, or that you didn't have the support for. And I'm here for you now. I'm looking out for you. Nothing that happened was your fault, because often as little kids, I mean, we're egocentric when we're little, right? We think everything is because and about us. That's just part of the development. So if something happens with the adults in our life, we automatically make it mean something about us. And so to really say that divorce, that the death of that person, the financial stress, that your parents were under, whatever the case might be, that had nothing to do with you. You are loved. You always will be loved. There's nothing you need to do or be to earn that love. And I'm here for you. And you are acting as your adult self, nurturing that younger self. So you can do that through letter writing. I have a meditation that I will walk people through, to visually, like a guided meditation, to meet your younger self, put your arm around them, say all the things that you wanted someone to say to you. You can do that for your younger self. And this is how we start providing ourselves the validation and the love. And it's so fascinating, because as we start doing this work, without even realizing it, we let go of so much of the need to hear that validation and approval from others. And clients will come back and say, first of all, they're shocked by the emotion that comes up when they do this work, because they think it's weird and I don't even know if I'm ready for this. And then just looking at that picture of their younger selves and seeing and saying loving things to themselves brings up so much that they didn't even know was under there. And I always say, that's a great thing. Let it out, release it, and know that that means there's some healing work that needs to be done. You're in the right place. You're doing the right stuff. If that emotion comes up, it's not a bad thing. Right. And then they'll also say to me, I started noticing that it's okay if my partner or my boss or my mother, it doesn't give me the acknowledgement and the praise. Of course, I still want it, but now I know that I can turn inward and give that to myself, and let the other people's positive comments just be the cherry on top of the ice cream. It's just the bonus that always feels good, but I don't need it to know I'm okay.
It's just, what you're saying is just so beautiful, right? I visualize, because I'm always thinking, wouldn't that be great if they could invent a mirror so that when you look in this mirror, you actually see yourself as a 7-year-old. And you're looking in the mirror in the eyes of that 7-year-old you, saying, you're beautiful, I love you, yes. You're just perfect the way you are.
Yes. I love that. Yes. That's sort of in the meditation, that's kind of one method you can take, is almost, you see a projector, and on the projector, you see a movie, and it's rewinding to a certain part of your life. So it's sort of a similar idea, but it's for people who struggle to visualize. Actually seeing it would be very cool.
Yeah.
I love the use of the photo. I think that's quite powerful, because a lot of people cannot always visualize, but if they have that in front of them, that's a really powerful tool. So, as I'm listening to you and realizing, working with clients on a lot of these same issues, the journey of an empath also, about trying to be that caregiver, always trying to make everybody around them happy, is definitely crossing paths with a codependent.
Yes.
So, and also, a lot of my work and my background is in narcissism. And a lot of times you just want to be liked. You really just want to be liked. So, and then another thing where it relates, Lauren, is I found that in business, I had to at some point realize, okay, if I'm a leader, it doesn't mean that I just have to always keep everybody happy. And the opposite is almost like I had a fear to be labeled as a not so nice female word. And so, and then I would overcompromise to not be that, and then compromise my leadership. And in the end, it's just creating chaos in that. So, yeah, it's just, I think codependency, in my view, is almost a spectrum. It's
Yes.
not just one thing. So
Yep. And I think that's when I do my events and I go through a lot of the common, signs of all of these things, codependency, perfectionism, people pleasing. I will say to people, you may check every single box, or you may find you relate to a couple of things and maybe not to everything. You might find codependency shows up primarily in one area for you. Maybe it's at work, or maybe it's in your relationship, or you might find it kind of is sprinkled throughout and it pops up in all different areas. So I love the idea of a spectrum because it really shows there's no cookie cutter. And I also think what's helpful in my events, people can chat back and forth. And it's really fascinating to see that people will have come from totally different childhood backgrounds and still arrive at some of these same tendencies. So I always say you can come at it from, there's so many different reasons why we're led to these tendencies. And it's not, your story is not going to look like mine, but we can connect on the feelings that we had, even if the circumstances were very different. And one other thing, just to kind of add to, because one of the questions I get a lot about inner child work, and maybe you get this as well, is I don't remember my childhood. How can I do this work? Or I don't want to go back and relive because there was some pretty traumatic stuff. Very valid questions and concerns. The important thing to highlight here is you actually don't have to remember any of the events. You don't have to focus on what happened. You just want to focus on how you felt. Exactly. And how you wanted to feel. And that can sometimes alleviate some people's concerns or fears, because it's very understandable that you don't want to relive past memories, or that you don't, when we don't have memories, it's a defense mechanism. Our brain is blocking us from remembering things that were too traumatic as a way to protect us. So you can still do this work, because if you think about what you want now and what you would have wanted to hear and give that to yourself, it can be so transformative, and it's empowering, because now it's, I can have my own back. I can be my own best friend. I'm not dependent on making sure that everybody else is caring about my needs. And when we start taking care of our own needs, magically, it seems the people in our lives that we start attracting in are going to support us, encourage us, and also respect our boundaries. So it's really cool how it can have a ripple effect,
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about perfectionism and in relationship to codependency.
Yeah, good question there, because I think perfectionism probably gets less attention maybe than the other two, the codependency and people pleasing. And certainly not everybody fits all of them. I just find there is a lot of overlap. So again, as we're looking for that external approval, we're looking for that validation. One way that we often find it in our youth is through our performance. And that could be anything. That could be academics. It could be sports. It could be the arts. It could be being funny and getting attention from that, right? And so we start to make these connections as a kid between, if I am really good at this thing, if I am perfect at it, if I win the award, if I, get straight A's, then I get praise, attention, love, validation, and that feels so good. And if we come from an environment where either those really, really high expectations were put on us as a kid, because maybe our family members were perfectionists, that becomes our norm. That becomes the standard. And we are maybe if there's comparison going on in the family between, with sibling rivalry and competition and things like that, if you just don't get a ton of attention because maybe there's a lot of kids in the household, or maybe there's something going on where everybody is focused around a sick family member or something like that. And then you get attention when you do well, when you stand out from the crowd, then that reinforces that idea. My worthiness stems from my performance. And then that further says, well, I must keep doing better and better and better because I need that love and acceptance. And so whatever I have to do to get it, I'm going to do that. And in the process of that, we lose ourselves. We neglect and abandon our own needs because we're doing whatever it takes to earn love, instead of realizing that, again, we deserve love and acceptance, no matter if we never accomplish anything in our whole life, right? And I think with perfectionism, there's a big fear because we tend to engage in really rigid thinking, all or nothing thinking. I'm either perfect at this or I'm a complete failure. I either have to burn out and overwork, or I'm going to be lazy and slack off and do nothing. And we really fear that we have to be in one of these two boxes. And I definitely don't want to be in that failure box. When the truth is, there's so much in between those extremes, right? There is a way to try to achieve a balance where we take care of our needs and still work hard, where we take pride in our work, but we also don't make our work mean something about our significance. And so finding that balance is really tricky. And we're not always going to get it right. But if we can recognize and course correct, that's where the awareness comes in, and just make some shifts and say, oh, I think I'm overdoing it here. I need to back off a little bit. That's when we can start to really achieve self-love, confidence, and health, right? Like emotional and physical well-being.
So tell us about somatic healing. I've heard rumblings of it, right? There, it's starting to rumble in the counseling community. There's some parts of it that are a little woo-woo, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's some very effectiveness in it as well, because I've heard of it, I've read about it, and I think what I have heard about it, it could be extremely effective. So tell us about somatic healing.
Yeah, I've found this to be some of the most profound work in terms of healing from anxiety, panic, overwhelm, stress. And those are things that are just becoming more and more prevalent in our society, for sure. And people are looking for tools that are going to work. And so as a therapist, right, you hear, or you're trained a lot in cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's dealing a lot with looking at your thoughts, challenging them, shifting them to try to rewire the brain. And I think all of that is awesome. But what I hear the most from clients, and also my own experience in trying to work through some of these issues, is I don't know how to make it click. I know that my thoughts might not be rational. They might not be kind or fair or gentle to myself, but I don't know how to switch them in a way that I believe it. Like my heart and my mind don't match up. How do I feel it? And so somatic work is kind of the missing piece to that. When we're in that stressed out, anxious, overwhelmed zone, we're in our heads, right? Our thoughts are spiraling. We're thinking, what if, what if, what if? It's always catastrophic. It's very repetitive, very negative. And that's where we feel like we don't have control. So people will say, how do you expect me to turn off my brain and stop having these spiraling thoughts? Like, I would love to, but it just doesn't seem like it's working. And so that's where somatic practices come in, because somatic practices reconnect you to your body. So instead of living in your head, it brings you into your body, and it also brings you back to the present moment. Whereas most of our thoughts are future oriented if we're anxious, or they're past oriented if we're kind of feeling depressed or having regret about the past. So somatic work brings us into the present. It grounds us in our body, and it helps us to feel safe, to come out of fight or flight. Because when we're anxious and stressed, our nervous system goes into fight or flight. We stay there. Our thoughts are spinning. We're feeling the physical sensations of stress, and that causes us to spiral more. And eventually we hit that freeze, that shutdown. That's where either we give up, we feel hopeless, we're exhausted, you might get sick. That is because we can't stay in fight or flight too long. If we're in fight or flight, we're eventually going to crash. And what we want to be is in that middle zone. It's that safe place where our bodies can rest and digest, we can heal, we can repair. And that is what somatic work can do. So different practices with somatics involve using your senses, because when you engage your senses, you're present, right? If you are smelling a beautiful candle, you can't really be focused on the scent of that candle and also be thinking about, 2 weeks from now. They're kind of not able to happen at the same time. If you are wrapping yourself in a warm, fluffy fleece blanket and you're just feeling the texture of that blanket and the warmth, you're present, focused right here and now. Even if you're tasting, a peppermint and your taste buds kind of explode because it's that strong smell. So somatic work is a way to come back to the present and also allow your body to come down out of fight or flight. And we do all different. I love this work because it's quick. You can do it anywhere and it doesn't require any tools, just usually your body itself. They're very nonchalant. Like you could be at a work meeting and be doing something and nobody's even aware of it. Or you could excuse yourself and go to the restroom and do some breathing exercises. I say it takes like 60 seconds to do a somatic practice. And everybody deserves to take 60 seconds at least once a day to check in on themselves and to kind of say, all right, how am I doing? What do I need right now to recalibrate? Instead of waiting till you're at that 10 out of 10 on the anxiety scale, and then you're feeling totally out of control. So it's one of my favorite tools.
Is it about catching yourself when you know you're going to get crazy making, catching yourself before that, doing a practice, and then you're getting into your body. How's my body? Where in my body am I feeling it? Like, can you lead us through that? Like, if it's a 60-second thing, can you lead us through that just right now?
Sure. So first, to answer your question, ideally, you want to start practicing these exercises on a regular basis when you're calmer. And the reason for that is because when we try something new in a state of heightened anxiety, our brain can't really take in and absorb new information very easily. And so we're going to struggle. So if we can start practicing when we're relatively calm and get used to doing it, then it can become automatic. So if you do find, I didn't catch myself and now I'm really overwhelmed, you'll be able to do these practices much more easily. So in the ideal, you're checking in before you get to that 10 out of 10, but they are useful even if you're at that heightened place as well. So I can give you a couple quick examples of some of them. There's so many out there. And I always say, like, try a couple and see what resonates with you. But my absolute favorite one is this one. You just take one of your hands and you put it right across the center of your chest, like near your heart area. You take your other hand and you put it right across on your belly, like over top of your belly button. Okay. So one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. If you can have your feet touching the floor just for some grounding, that's great. But you can be sitting, that's fine. And then you can close your eyes or lower your gaze and you take a couple of deep belly breaths. You want to breathe in through your nose and then out through your mouth. You should feel your belly moving. That's how you know you're doing a deep belly breath. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you can make your exhale longer than your inhale. So maybe you inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale through the mouth for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The numbers don't really matter, but if you exhale longer than you inhale, it tells your body you're safe and you can come out of fight or flight. Okay. So after you've done a couple deep breaths like that, then I want you to say to yourself, if you're by yourself, you can say it out loud. Otherwise, you can just repeat in your head. Right now, I am safe. I am okay. These feelings are temporary. I can handle this. Okay. And any version of that, it doesn't have to be that word for word. If it doesn't feel right for you, then you can modify it. But the goal is to let yourself know in this moment, I'm okay. My life is not in danger. Everything I'm feeling is really intense, but it will pass and I can get through this. So that's one of them. That's probably my favorite. I use that one on a regular basis because this hold is really supportive. It's grounding. The breathing brings you out of fight or flight. And then you're having your own back. You're speaking to yourself like a loving parent or best friend or partner would. And you're reminding yourself, like, I can create emotional safety from within. I don't need the situation to change. I don't need a certain person or a certain object or item. I am what I need. And I'm who's going to be with me from birth through the end of my life, guaranteed. So that's one example. I could show you other ones. I mean, I love this stuff, but that's probably the one that people relate with the most. So what did you think?
When I
Well,
touch
it's
right
amazing.
here, it's so warm, right?
Yeah.
It's just warm.
Yep.
It's almost like, I don't know, it's like from, when your mom holds you or, rocks you,
Yes.
or that kind of a feeling of really comfort. And a hand is super big, right? Like our hands are big, covers a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've
But to
never
me,
done
the
it, but I breathe
feeling, sorry,
so
Fran.
shallow. I breathe super shallow, right?
Yeah.
I need to learn to breathe
We
better.
do without realizing it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
To me, I'm going through an exceptionally stressful time with business in my life right now. And it's just so busy. And the moment I felt this, I realized, like Fran, that I've been breathing very shallowly, and my heart rate. The moment I did this, it was like this calmness just ended, and I could feel it. And so that was quite amazing. I love the affirmation and that. And we talk a lot about I have excellent coping skills, but this kind of made it real. It made it tangible. I like that.
Oh, good. Yeah. And the nice part too is I always tell people, do a somatic practice first, and then you can do some of that cognitive behavioral therapy. Mm-hmm. Because when we are in fight or flight, the rational part of our brain is offline. We have no access to it. And that's why we struggle to reframe or question our thoughts. It's why when someone else tells you something, you're easily able to say, oh, no, you're being so hard on yourself, or, you're expecting way too much out of yourself, because we have access to the rational part of our brain in that moment, but not when we are so heightened. So if you can do a somatic practice first, calms your body, then you have access to the rational part of the brain to start saying, okay, these thought patterns are not serving me. I'm really being really mean to myself, or I'm not checking in on me and how I'm doing. Like, we're just able to then do that additional therapeutic work. But I have found the somatic work really needs to come first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think also, a lot of times I'm a big follower of Joe Dispenza. I don't talk about him enough. But he, the breathing is becoming more and more important in all his meditation and his work as well. And you hear a lot about breathing these days. And I think, preceding a meditation, even hypnosis sessions for us, the calming down, like what you mentioned, I was just even seeing myself doing that with my clients, the senses. Smell something just to be more present. And it's so true. If you smell that candle, you're present. Like right now, my husband decided to make an early meal for us. I can smell it. So, it's just what it does to the senses. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Oh, sure. No, thanks for participating.
It's wonderful. I love new little techniques that we can use for our own practice and, with our families, with my students. I just love this stuff. What, do you have another quick one for us? Another tool in your toolbox?
Yeah, sure. I think another one that's been pretty popular is a finger tapping exercise. And there's actually 3 different ways that you can do it. And this is nice because this could be one if you're at work or you're, in a public place that, you're sitting at a table and maybe your hands are under the table. You could be doing this and no one would have any idea. And it's sort of a quick calming exercise. So I'll show you 3 different variations of it. You can use either hand or both hands. And all you do is you touch each finger to your thumb forwards, and then you go backwards. Okay. And any pace is fine. Now, as you're doing that, you can add in a couple of things. One could be some breath work. So you could breathe in when you touch the first finger, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. That's going to kind of connect the breath to the tactile. Another thing that you could do is you could try counting as you do this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. That gives the brain a task to focus on. If our brain can focus on, all right, I have to count forwards and backwards, it's then going to give our body a chance to come down out of fight or flight instead of having the spiraling thoughts. Okay. And then the third one is you could use a mantra while you do a finger touch. So you could say, I am safe now. I am safe now. That's a possibility. I really like Gabby Bernstein's work, and she has one that says, peace begins with me. And you touch each finger. So again, we're using our senses, tactile. So we're grounding in our body. We're giving our brain a job to either focus on the breathing, the counting, or the mantra. And we're just connecting back into the present by having to focus on these tasks. So that's another one. Kids really like that one. So when I worked as a school counselor and therapist for years with elementary school students, so I like to find ones that were easy to teach them as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. So before we go, can you please tell us how our viewers can get hold of you?
Yeah.
And yeah, any way that they can get hold of you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a couple different ways. I do have a website, and it's letgowithlo.com. And on my website, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is where I send out, exclusive content, tell you what events and different things are coming up. I offer, little bonuses and promo codes and things like that in my newsletter. My website also has a store. I have a bunch of downloadable virtual events where similar to this, where I'm talking a lot about different topics and giving tools and strategies. I have PowerPoint slides on there. I have a couple of meditations people can purchase. And I have a blog as well. It's called Ask Lo, and people submit questions. And it's sort of like an advice column, I guess you could say. So the website has a lot of good info. And then you can also follow me on social media on Instagram and Facebook. Let Go With Lo is my handle on both. And I post, almost every day, different quotes, strategies. It's a really beautiful community of support. So a lot of people will say, I want to continue these conversations with like-minded people. I want to feel like I'm in a place where people understand me and are also on a healing journey. That's a really good opportunity to do that. And actually, just one thing that's coming up that I definitely want to get the word out about, starting in January, I am doing a group coaching program. It's going to be limited to 12 people, but there's still a couple of spots. And it's focusing solely on codependency, people pleasing, and perfectionism. It's 6 weeks, and we are going to do a lot of education, a lot of group practice, strategies, the support element of having other people who can relate and are cheering you on. I'm really excited about this because I work one-on-one, and I love that. But I think there's an element of we can learn from each other, and having the group dialogue and discussion and practicing together that can really take the healing to the next level. So I just want to, let everyone know if you're interested in kind of diving deeper into this work in the new year, it's a great gift to give yourself to say, I'm going to show up for these 6 weeks and I am going to, dive in. We talk about reconnecting with your authentic self. We talk about feeling and releasing uncomfortable emotions, setting boundaries, some inner child healing. And it's something I'm really excited about. So thank you for letting me share a little bit about my work.
No, it was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Lauren.
I've been subscribing to your newsletter for a while now, and I find it quite well done. I really like it. And your store too is reasonable. It's so reasonably priced, right? For the quality, it's very reasonably priced. So it's a very good investment for the new year, for all of us, really, for 2023, to take a real look and see, is there something in my life I really want to work on? I just applaud you for that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I want this to be accessible because I truly believe everyone can benefit from this type of work. And that's what I like, is that, therapy has had this stigma over time of only people with problems, or you have to need mental help, and it's really not the case. Coaching, therapy, everyone can benefit because we're all humans who have been through challenges and obstacles. We've heard messages and had experiences that have shaped how we view the world and how we view ourselves. And so I really love like the work that you all are doing that's really just trying to bring it to a broader community and really destigmatize that getting to know and love ourselves is a beautiful thing at any stage of life. So
exactly. And as parents, caregivers, teachers, anyone who works with people, if we can understand ourselves, we can understand other people better too, right? It just creates a better world.
Right, because we set an example without even realizing it, right? If we're doing these things and people say, wow, I can see how much that's benefiting her, what is she doing? Then they may pick up on it. And then basically it's a ripple effect, right? That benefits everybody we interact with. When we take care of ourselves, we show up as our best self. And then we are actually able to have stronger relationships and help others just by living our best lives. So
yeah, wonderful. And thank you so much again, Lauren. It was absolutely amazing having you here. And I trust that a lot of our viewers will connect with you and learn from us today. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you for having me.
Time.
You're
very welcome.
Those of us who like watching, please subscribe. The subscribe button is below, and I encourage everyone to go to Lauren's website and check it out. letgowithlo.com. Super easy to spell.
Right.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, L-O, not L-O-W, right?
You got it.
Okay.